He got
media room and grab somebody.
he got an associate with that I met yesterday.
Mr. Personality.
Oh yeah.
Come up and that's help on. You're not supposed to do that. Thank you. All right, let's come to order. And are there issues for the state?
No, Your Honor.
Are there issues for the defense?
I don't think so at this time, Judge.
Let's bring the jury in.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chester.
Liddell, drug court participant.
Just for your edification, probably after the Northern Right, we'll have decisions about the weather issue, and I'll let y'all know. So you can make your own
Let's all rise for the
decisions.
jury. Please watch your step. Coming in. Good morning. Good morning. What are y'all doing? Good morning.
Watch your step.
Is it Wednesday?
Please be seated. Please be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It's good to see you all. We're ready to resume the trial. The state can call their next witness.
Call Brad Shumpert.
Please be seated.
That's fine. Sure. All right, sir. If you will you please state your full name and spell it for our court reporter she's seated in front of you?
Good morning. My name is Brad Shumpert. That's S-H-U-M-P-E-R-T. And I'm employed with the Cobb County Police Department.
What do you do specifically with Cobb County PD?
Currently, I'm assigned to the evidence unit. As of last August, I was assigned to the homicide unit as a crime scene technician, and I'm post-certified for the state of Georgia as a crime scene technician.
We've heard a little bit about posts from one of our other officers, that is police officer standardized training. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you are a post-certified police officer. In other words, you have arrest powers, correct?
No, post-certified crime scene technician.
Crime scene tech. I apologize. And why don't you explain for the jury what the difference is between a crime scene tech versus a detective or a uniformed officer?
The difference is I'm tasked with going out and processing and collecting evidence for our department. My current assignment, or our prior assignment, was with the homicide unit, our crimes against persons unit. We were tasked with going and assisting detectives who are working the scenes by collecting and processing evidence there.
And are different scenes handled differently?
They are.
Can you please explain generally what kind of things might dictate how you process a scene, whether it's outdoors, indoors, just some of the factors that you have to consider as a crime scene investigator?
Right, depending on what kind of crime was committed. We investigate murders and rapes and robberies, and depending on what location we're all well equipped and trained to handle all the factors going into a process in each and every one of those scenes.
Now, in terms of processing scene, would that also include taking photographs and videos on occasion?
It would.
And do you have special equipment that you're given through Cobb County Police that allows you to do this documentation process?
That's correct.
And how long have you been working with Cobb County Police in total?
It'll be going on 9 years coming up in February.
And back in September of 2014, where In June of 2014, what specific unit were you assigned to?
Our Crimes Against Persons unit, which consists of some major felonies unit, which consists of the homicide squad and robbery squad, and we investigate all felonies, crimes against persons, basically.
We had some discussions very early on, even in jury selection, about the differences between what we see on TV sometimes in terms of CSI versus the realities of crime scenes investigations. Can you explain a little bit for the jury the differences between what you really do versus what they might see on TV in these fictional programs?
Well, basically, you have real life and you have TV life, and they are much different from what you will see on TV. We still go about doing things in a way of manner of processing that's been going on for a number of years now. We don't have any magical hocus-pocus things that we can just throw out there and things we can get back, and then 24 hours we have somebody in custody or have an item that's processed to lead us to that. It's much the same way we've been processing for a number of years. Just technology's gotten better with cameras and documentation tools, but other than that, it's pretty much go about the same way.
I want to ask you about June the 18th of 2014. Were you working on that date?
I was.
And did you have some involvement in this case involving decedent Cooper Harris?
I did. Just a little after 4 o'clock, I was contacted by our lieutenant at the time, and not to confuse both counsel and the jury, I may refer back to this individual as a captain or a lieutenant. It's not to confuse, but people have gotten rank and become detectives otherwise. But at the time, Lieutenant Farrell contacted me by phone and requested that I get my gear and respond to Acres Mill where a child had been found deceased.
And he's now a captain, which is why you wanted to clarify that you meant refer to him both, correct?
Correct.
All right, so Lieutenant Farrell at the time asked you to respond for what purpose?
To document a scene where a child was found deceased.
And I want to ask you about this specific location. Do you recall the address?
Acres Mill, I believe it was 2566 Acres Mill, if I'm correct.
Okay. Is that in Cobb County, Georgia?
It is in Cobb County.
And give us a general description about where that location is within Cobb County.
It would be in the southeastern corner of Cobb County. Cobb County borders Fulton County, which is where the city of Atlanta is at. It's also where the new Braves Stadium is going. It's where 285 comes in. It is an area where there are lots of retail stores and shopping and also high-rise business areas. I've driven around Brunswick my first visit here, and it would be like going by the mall over in Brunswick where there's some shops around there. The Target area would something look about like that. There's lots of shops, there's lots of restaurants, there's lots of people. Just take that what y'all have here and add 200,000 people, and that's kind of like the location of where that's at.
Fair to say it's not a rural location.
It's not a rural location by any means.
Okay. And we do have some rural locations in Cobb County, in the northwest corridor, for example, but this is not one of them.
This is not one of those areas.
Okay. And this is actually near a major interstate as well. It's very near I-75.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. I-75 and I-285. It's a major corridor, lots of people.
All right. And you've had an opportunity to look at some aerial photographs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
This is State's Exhibit 228. Looking at 228, you and I had an opportunity to look at this and discuss this earlier. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm looking at State's Exhibit 228. Is this a fair and accurate aerial depiction of the location that you described, Acres Mill Road?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. And there's several other locations that are marked here as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But this encompasses the area that you responded to where this particular vehicle was. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You can see it on the top of this.
That's correct.
Interstate's 228.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
Let me get you down in front of the jury for just a second. the easel. Let me step back a little bit. Hope y'all can see that. Best you're able. You'll have opportunity to see it closer back in the jury room, I suspect. Looking at 228, what am I pointing to here? What is marked here on the top of 228?
This is where Uncle Mattio's Pizza along the strip mall off Acres Mill. This is Highway 41, U.S. Highway 41, and Acres Mill across that, and this shopping center would be at that corner.
Okay. And specifically, there's a little turn lane that goes into this area off of Acres Mill where Uncle Mattio's is marked, correct?
That's correct.
And then up here, is this the Cinco's restaurant that's also located in that area?
It would be.
Okay. We've got some photographs I'm going to show you in just a little bit of that Cinco's. Does this have any sort of deck area that allows patrons to visit and eat outdoors?
I believe they have an elevated patio on top of the restaurant.
Just so we can get our bearings, some of these jurors might be more familiar with Cobb than others. Is this Cumberland Mall?
Yes, it would.
Okay. And then we have some other things that are marked here. So before we leave 228, I want to ask you about those areas as well. Are you familiar with the Home Depot, what we call the Treehouse office?
I am.
And in fact, we'll get to it in a minute, but as part of your response in this particular case, did you actually travel there on this date to photograph a vehicle belonging to Leanna Harris?
I did.
So I'm pointing to an area down here that will be the lower left side of 228 as you face it. What is marked here?
That would be the Treehouse office.
This is the Home Depot Treehouse. And then finally, up here to the upper right side, are you familiar with this area as well?
I am.
And describe for the jury what's marked on the upper right side.
It's the Parkway Point movie theater. I believe it also has like an elevated parking deck beside it as well.
So this is a movie theater to the upper right side of this area. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, you can take your seat. To take this chronologically, your first task was to respond to and process a scene near the Uncle Mattio's. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Describe, if you will, the scene as you found it when you arrived at approximately about 5:24.
Correct.
Can you describe that scene for the jury?
When I arrived, that area where you would turn in off Acres Mill behind the shopping area where the Uncle Mattio's Pizza place was already cordoned off by responding officers. Detectives from my unit, the Crimes Against Persons Homicide Unit, had arrived, and there were a number of marked patrol cars there as well, and police personnel on and about the area. And just to the south of there, that road was blocked off, and I observed where they had a sheet trying to cover up, so you couldn't see up the road to provide some basically some privacy of the scene. I also believe that media was already showing up. Like I said, it's Atlanta, and media was already showing up, and they've already kind of blocked it off with a sheet.
Okay. Now, can you describe to the jury what the process is when you first arrive on a scene? And in particular, I want to focus on what we call a walkthrough.
Right. The first thing I do would be getting with whoever is the scene commander for my unit. Then I conduct a walkthrough with them. I will discuss what is going on, what do I need to do, and ask them the questions, and they'll provide me with the answers. Lieutenant Farrell says we have a child that's deceased. There was a silverish blue color Hyundai Tucson parked just to the outside of that in that parking lane. Said there's a deceased male child, and that I should go and photograph and document the scene as it sat, and then wait for the medical examiner to get there, and then assist him with also photographs of the deceased child.
Let's talk a little bit about your role with Cobb County Police Department versus the medical examiner's role in death investigations. Can you articulate what the distinction is?
Right. The medical examiner's office has jurisdictions over the body. The investigator comes out, they're the ones who do field observations, and they're the ones who actually touch the body, maneuver the body, look at the body for defects, for signs of injury, for trauma, and the actual body is turned over to them. We're there just to process the scene itself and around it.
Do you oftentimes work in conjunction with the medical examiner's office, though, in documenting a particular scene?
We do. In any death investigations, we assist them by documenting the scene by basically taking photos and videos if needed.
And do you know who investigator Martin Jackson is?
I do.
And explain how you know Martin Jackson.
He's a coworker. He works in the medical examiner's office. He's a field investigator. Just to the number of volumes of calls that we work together quite often.
And when he comes out to a scene such as this one, whose responsibility is to take custody of the scene such as Cooper Harris?
The medical examiner's office takes custody over the deceased.
While that is going on, do you in any way document, and did you document in this case, Cooper Harris's condition in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, as the medical examiner's investigator does a field observation. I'll go and take photos as he wants me to do them, or he or she wants me to do them. He'll maneuver the body. He'll say, take a photo here, take a photo of this, and so forth, and that's how that works.
Okay. And I want to talk about the weather conditions that day. Can you please describe for the jury, before we get to photographs and videos, the weather conditions on that date when you responded a little bit after 5?
It's hot June, Georgia day. Hot, humid. That day, thunderstorms are brewing off to the west, and we saw it fit to put over shelter because we didn't know when those pop-up thunderstorms were going to happen.
When you say shelter, what specifically did you do, and what did you have that you brought with you to the scene to assist in giving some shelter while you documented what was going on?
We erected a pop-up tent shelter. Got four legs and a tent on top of it. Placed it over the body, and then I wrapped a tarp around there to keep people who could see it, media or anybody else around the area, to actually see down to where the decedent lay.
When you first arrived on the scene, was the defendant, Justin Ross Harris, had he already been detained?
Yeah, I just recall probably passing Piper's patrol car and him sitting in the back as I was coming in.
We saw some photographs yesterday of Piper's patrol vehicle. It was parked a little bit off from the scene, further up from the vehicle. I guess if you're standing at the Tucson facing forward, it would have been in front of the Tucson. Is that where you saw Piper's patrol vehicle when you arrived?
No, those cars are already moved and I guess going to leave out that exit.
Okay. And did you have any contact with the defendant at all?
No.
Did you see him at all?
I may have seen a glance as I walked past the patrol car, but that's all.
I want to talk about young Cooper Harris. While you were on the scene, before you began the documenting process, did you confirm in any way that he was deceased?
Other than asking responding officers where the body was, they said lying under a sheet on the pavement. That was my confirmation.
I got it. And you did not actually put the sheet on Cooper, is that correct?
No, it was already laying on him as I arrived.
At some point, that sheet was removed so that you could take some photographs and some videos, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who actually removed that sheet such that you were able to do that?
Investigator Jackson with the ME's office.
When you arrived, in other words, were all of the doors closed or was one of them open?
There's only one door that was open, and that was the passenger side door. I mean, the driver's side door.
Okay. And were you able at any point to look inside the vehicle to make any observations?
I did. When I did a walkthrough before I started digital photographs of the area, I just kind of walked around the vehicle just to look at it, just casually observe what I saw, and did I elaborate to go into what I saw?
Please, yeah, just describe the vehicle if you could.
The vehicle was silver in color, bluish, I believe Hyundai Tucson, a small, like crossover type SUV. I recall having a Georgia license plate, a Roll Tide, Alabama, a club tag. I could clearly see a red and black, a rear-facing car seat that was situated in the back seat. There's only one back seat, didn't have a third row. It was red and black in color. You can clearly see it walking around. Anything else about the vehicle? There's some items in the front seat that I saw, and anything else about it was unremarkable. There's no wreckage or anything like that.
From the exterior of the vehicle, I want to ask from two different vantage points. from standing in the door frame and peering in, I'm talking about the open driver's side door.
Right.
Standing in that open door frame, could you look inside the vehicle and see that red car seat that you just described?
Yes.
I now want to ask you about the windows of the vehicle, but admittedly, were some of the windows more tinted than others?
The rear window, facing out, the rear window was darker than the
Call processing the vehicle.
No, we couldn't process the vehicle yet because it was determined that a search warrant would be needed to process the vehicle. And our scene commander at the time, Lieutenant Farrell, wanted the vehicle towed back to our processing facilities located at Cobb Police Headquarters.
So to be perfectly clear, that was not your responsibility in this case. Somebody else actually processed the interior of the vehicle.
The inside of the vehicle, yes, it was later on that night, early that morning.
Before the vehicle was processed, though, did you document its exact condition as you found it when you arrived on the scene
Right.
and other officers arrived on the scene?
Right, everything was documented as it sat as I arrived.
Did you ever go in the vehicle?
No.
Were you able to take your camera and the video, though, and at least videotape inside the vehicle from the open doorway?
That is correct.
I want to ask you about markings that were used to mark the placement of the vehicle.
Right.
Did you do anything prior to the vehicle being moved so that we could mark and document exactly where the vehicle was parked at the time that you found it?
Right, I chalked the tires using a orange fluorescent spray paint, just to document where it was at. When I arrived, I didn't know any more information about what happened or what occurred. So that was also to do in case, by any means, they take the body back to the medical center and it could be possibly a hit by a car or anything like that. I was over overabundance of caution. So in case a traffic unit can come out and investigate it, I went ahead and did that.
Are you familiar with the Faro technology, F-A-R-O?
That's correct. I'm trained on the Faro 3D scanner unit.
Okay, and the 3D scanner unit, we'll hear some testimony about that later. Is that a device that allows you to map a crime scene using 3D technology?
It is. It's basically just what it is. It documents by points of length and origin, and it brings data into a computer and builds a 3D model of what you're trying to produce.
In this particular case, you didn't use the 3D scanner, correct?
No, we did not have them when this occurred.
You're aware, though, that somebody came back out and used the 3D scanner?
Right, I am.
Okay. Now, the vehicle having been removed from that scene, would you still be able to see the markings where the exact placement of the vehicle would be?
You would be, unless the weather would have rode them off, but for a long time they were there.
Okay. Inside the vehicle, as you stood in that doorway and looked in the open vehicle, what did you see in the passenger seat?
I recall seeing a Home Depot bag. I don't know what's in it. And it looks like a briefcase was on the floorboard on the front passenger side.
Okay. And did you actually go in that bag or go inside the little briefcase that was in there? Or again, was that left to somebody else who's processing the vehicle?
No, I didn't make entry into the car. We didn't have a search warrant, and that was processed later on.
I want to talk a little bit about Cooper Harris's condition. Did Martin Jackson from the medical examiner's office arrive exactly with you, or did he come a little bit later?
He arrived a little bit later.
When Investigator Jackson from the medical examiner's office arrived on the scene, did he begin an assessment of Cooper?
He did.
And were you present when that happened?
I was present.
Can you describe the condition of Cooper as you observed it as Martin Jackson was removing the blanket, the tarp that was on top of Cooper? What did you see?
I observed it was a young child, toddler age, lying on his back on the pavement, knees slightly bent, arms to his side, lividity, which is red blood cells seeping through the serum in the blood. That when you lie deceased on your back for a while, the gravity will pull that down, so you'll have a discoloration, purple bluish bruising, what I can describe it as. That was present. He had some scratches, appeared on the face. He was wearing a little shirt, had bicycles on it, and little tennis shoes.
Okay. Was he in rigor? In other words, was his body stiff when you observed
Yeah,
him?
he was noticeably, to me, in rigor.
And what about the color of his skin, other than the lividity you saw once he was turned over?
It was pale.
Okay. And there were some photographs that you took of Cooper in this condition that you've just described, correct?
That's correct.
Including when he was turned over. I noticed there was some discoloration on his back, so it was wet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And were you able to get close enough that you could actually smell Cooper?
But to me, I would describe the smell as, hot, musty, urine-soaked diaper. If you leave a diaper in a car all day long in the heat, that's the noticeable smell to me.
And did you actually take some photographs of his wet back and his wet shorts to document
Right.
that?
On the back side, along his shorts and shirt were noticeably wet.
In terms of some of the locations that we've described here, is this a highly congested area off of Acres Mill Road?
It's an extremely highly congested area.
And the specific area that you found Cooper, how close was he to the vehicle when you arrived?
I did some approximate, just cursory measurements, and I measured from the corner of the front open door panel, not inside, but the outside. It was 3 feet 6 inches from the door to the center of his chest.
So he was pretty close to the vehicle where you found him, correct?
Correct.
I want to talk about the other areas around this, though. You already talked about it being a hot day. Did you get close enough to the pavement to feel how it was?
I did. I crawled around the car when I was measuring it, and I was down there, and it's hot Georgia pavement.
All right. Were there other areas around the vehicle other than the pavement that Cooper could have been placed?
As a professional or as a human being or a father, are you asking me?
I'm asking you, did you observe other areas other than pavement where Cooper could have been placed outside that vehicle?
Yeah, there are many areas that I would have taken a child and placed them.
I want to talk a little bit about the photos that you took. You and I had an opportunity to look at some photographs on several occasions now, correct?
Correct.
And I'm going to start by showing you thumb drive mark is 227. In fact, this morning, just to confirm, we looked at the thumb drive 227 to confirm that these had some photographs of this particular scene, correct?
That's correct.
There's also some other scenes that are included on here as well, but we'll start with this scene. Does this contain fair and accurate depictions of the crime scene that you've just described for this jury?
Yes, it would.
There were 2 other areas that you were asked to process on that date, is that correct?
That's correct.
One of those areas is actually depicted here on States 228. That's Leanna Harris's vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
Are there also fair and accurate depictions of that vehicle from your processing on that date?
That's correct.
And then later on that day, were you also asked to go to defendant's apartment to process and document that area?
That's correct.
Having looked at 227, does this have fair and accurate depictions of that as well?
Yes, it would.
The actual hard copies of the photographs we've just described. Some of which were tendered yesterday. Students by sections. You can look with me and just confirm. This is going to be states 1, 2, 3 was actually tendered yesterday, as was 4. You have, can you see this okay?
Yep.
5, 6 was tendered and received yesterday. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Are those fair and accurate depictions of defendant's vehicle and the scene as you first saw when you arrived?
Yes, they would be.
So I'm going to tender states 1 through 14. I know that includes some that were already tendered yesterday. But out of abundance of caution, we'll just lay the foundation again.
No objection.
Very good.
Next set of photographs we'll refer you to. Photographic dependence vehicle. And we'll go 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Those last three were tendered and admitted yesterday, but you can now see those. 22. Are those fair and accurate depictions of defendant's vehicle that you just described?
Yes, they would be.
Stage 23. Through and including 32, are those fair and accurate depictions of the exterior and interior of the vehicle as you observed it using camera and video?
Yes, they would be.
Next, I want to ask about the car seat, looking at 33 all the way through 41. Looking at those fair and accurate depictions of the car seat you've just described, photographed from the exterior of the vehicle.
Yes, they would be.
I want to ask you about Cooper Harris. Page 42. Through 50. 51 was tendered and admitted yesterday. And then 52, those fair and accurate depictions of Cooper Harris, both covered and uncovered as you observed him.
Yes, they would be.
And then stage 53. Through and including stage 70, are these photographs of Cooper Harris as Martin Jackson is taking custody of his body?
Yes, they would be.
Stage 71. Through, including 76, those fair and accurate depictions of some of the Levidian and other areas that you observed.
That's correct.
Stage 77 through 80, similarly as he's being processed, of those fair and accurate depictions of Cooper Harris.
Yes, they would be.
And then 81 through 88, fair and accurate depictions of his head and neck.
Yes, they would be.
Stage 89 through 96, fair and accurate depictions of his head and his abdomen.
Yes, they would be.
So I now tender as well stage 15 through 96.
No objection.
Very good. Yeah.
You described some videos as well of the scene, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm going to show you states 204 and 205. Looking at these discs, 204, is this the first video of the scene that you took?
Yes.
In fact, looking at the disc marks 204, we watched this in my office in Cobb County, and I had you initial it so that you would recognize this as being a fair and accurate copy of that recording, correct?
That's correct.
Similarly, states 205, video number 2, you watched this in my office in Cobb County so that we can confirm that this is an accurate copy of the video that you took, correct?
That's correct.
The first video, is this a video of essentially the exterior of the vehicle and walking around that vehicle?
That's correct.
And then the second video, is this a video that you took personally as Investigator Jackson was investigating the death of Cooper Harris?
That's correct.
Tender states 204 and 205 as well. Sure.
you know, while I do the witness just briefly on the videos. There's two different videos. One is of a scene and the other is from the house. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
It was a continuation from when I arrived, the scene, and then the search warrant after that.
Let me be clear too. These two discs are only the scene. I have not tendered, nor do I plan to tender the apartment.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. On the scene, what's depicted on one as opposed to the other? Is there something different depicted between one video DVD and the other DVD?
No,
of the scene?
just a pause.
I'm sorry.
Just a pause, and when I first got there for the first scene to walk through, and then when the medical investigator got there, we did another one as he did
I
his.
got you. Just two different times that same.
That's correct.
I got you. All right, no objection. Thank you.
Admitted.
On 227, the thumb drive, this morning you were present with me when we transferred copies of that video to 227 so we can confirm and play it through the technology we have here in the courtroom. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. I'm going to tender 227 as well.
And that is of everything or just the video?
It's everything, including the videos. So it's all photographs and videos. It's also the Leanna Harris's car and the apartment.
No objection.
Judge, with that, I'm going to publish with the court's permission 227 and the specific items that have been discussed.
Certainly.
I think what we're going to do is leave it right about there. If I leave this here, can everybody see? Okay, would it be all right if I leave it here and not? Okay. This may be easier. Shumpert, if you step down with me, and let's go through some of these, okay? I'm going to have you stand over to this side so that neither one of us are blocking the photos. It's a touch screen, so be careful about tapping it. But I may ask you some things, and we can use this pointer. All right. State's Exhibit number 1. Describe to the jury what State's Exhibit number 1 depicts.
It is of the scene from my point of view where we parked in coming from Acres Mill, into the drive.
Did I give you the exhibits? Okay. I'll refer to them by number to assist you as you go through them.
Thank you.
You had talked about a restaurant, Matio's. Do you see that depicted here on State's Exhibit number 1?
Right. This corner of the building is Uncle Matty Al's Pizza, and there's an outside sitting area where these 3 trees are right here.
Up here, this red light, it's marked with a specific street. Is that correct?
Right, Acres Mill Road.
And why is it that you, as a crime scene investigator, want to document things like street signs?
Let you know where I'm at.
All right, let's go through and take a look at some of these other vantage points. When you first arrived on scene, you described that it was cordoned off of crime scene tape. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
This yellow line that's here, can you describe to the jury what that is?
That's crime scene tape, extending east, southeast, back north, and south again. Around the area between Uncle Matty Al's Pizza and that building right there that's obscured by those crepe myrtle trees would be Cinco's Mexican restaurant.
There are some police officers that are inside this crime scene area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's Officer Foley. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
And then the taller gentleman here, is that Officer Gallimore?
That's correct.
Were they present on the scene, obviously, when you arrived?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, going to State's Exhibit number 3, we're just going to pan through this area. When you initially got to the, do you take scene photographs as you observe it from different vantage points so that we can make sure to capture everything?
I always try to do that. Yes, that would be accurate.
As we now have moved to State's Exhibit number 3, the bluish gray silver vehicle that you had described, the Tucson, do you see that here in this picture?
It's right here.
State's Exhibit number 4, as we move closer to that vehicle, is that the same vehicle by Mattios?
It is.
State's Exhibit number 5, same officers, correct?
That's correct.
And is that the vehicle?
Yes, it would be.
As you get closer to this vehicle, and we'll use 5 as an example, what's that white object right there?
It would be the sheet covering up the decedent, Cooper Harris.
Can you see that sheet here in State's Exhibit number 6?
You see a small portion of the sheet just outside the left rear passenger tire.
You had talked briefly about trying to give some privacy and protection from the media. And on State's Exhibit number 6, are these members of the media right here who actually got cameras up?
That's correct.
Because of that, did you or members of Cobb Police Office, did they erect this little sheet to try to block some of that view?
Officers who are already there put that sheet up, protect the viewing area.
This is State's Exhibit number 8, and looking at the side of the vehicle, could you see inside the window, particularly the passenger side window, could you see inside the vehicle when you got up close to it?
I could.
Before we leave State's Exhibit number 8, this right here says ITY on the end. Are you familiar with what store that is?
I believe that was Sports Authority.
Sports Authority. All right. This is State's Exhibit number 10. We'll skip forward a little bit. Is this the first view that we, I think, have been able to see where you can actually see the car door open?
That's correct.
And you describe this as being which door of that vehicle?
The front driver's side.
Is this how you found the vehicle when you arrived on the scene to process it?
Yes, it will.
Were any other vehicle doors open other than the driver's side?
No, they were not.
For some of these photographs, we've seen some where Officer Piper had her vehicle. At some point, did she leave that scene as you were processing it?
Yes.
Did you continue to take photographs after her vehicle left with the defendant?
Yes.
This is State's Exhibit number 14. What road is this depicted in the upper right of that photograph?
Cumberland Parkway.
Let's see.
For Acres Mill.
All right. We're now to State's Exhibit number 15. Describe this vantage point and what we can see here in State's 15.
This vantage point is actually from where they erected a sheet across here, looking towards the vehicle where the decedent lay. There was a rock wall that divided the back of the shopping center at Acres Mill Road.
Now, we can't see Cooper in this photograph, but we can see where his body is located, correct?
The body is located under the white sheet.
All right, I want to skip forward to State's Exhibit number 19. Describe what 19 depicts, please.
You'll be looking, I guess, from the southwest to the northeast. Looking at this building right here would be Cinco's, the restaurant that had that elevated eating area on top of it.
This is that open area, that deck area that
That's
you refer
correct.
to, is it correct? And are these windows right here, all the windows to Cinco's Eatery as well?
I believe they were.
And about this time of day, 4 or 5 o'clock, can you describe traffic conditions in Cobb County on a weekday during?
Right, terrible. It's usually bumper-to-bumper traffic from 3 to 8 o'clock through there.
And then we have right here a number of stores that are listed within this area. You talked about the Sports Authority. Is that one of them?
Right. Those are the stores that are listed in that general shopping area, not including the many restaurants and other small stores over there.
I'm now on State's Exhibit number 20. And looking at State's Exhibit number 20, this is a view of what?
This is just the overall view of the Hyundai Tucson, showing that the decedent lying there in the sheet. This item you see right here is a disaster sheet, a secondary sheet to cover the victim. That wasn't used.
This is Cooper's body underneath the white sheet, correct?
That's correct.
And then you talked about the distance from Cooper to the vehicle. What was that distance again?
I measured it at just over 3.5 feet.
And the pavement you described, this pretty hot area when you're crawling around?
Right, it's pretty hot.
And why is it specifically as you literally have to crawl around on a scene like this?
Right, that's correct.
Can you describe why you do that?
I was chalking the tires with paint and just taking some cursory measurements from the wall that was near Uncle Matty House Pizza behind on the other side of this area.
Even from this distance depicted on State's Exhibit number 20, what is that item right there?
It's a plastic bag.
Is that the Home Depot bag you described?
I believe that's correct.
I want to go to State's Exhibit number 22. the jury will have the actual photographs themselves, but looking at 22, even looking through this window here, what's that red item?
That's the car seat.
This is State's Exhibit number 23. Even with a little bit of glare, what's this red item right here that's depicted?
It's the top portion of the car seat.
Where specifically was that car seat inside the vehicle? In other words, was it on a particular side or was it in the center of that back seat?
It was in the center, and it was facing towards the rear. If you're lying on your back as a child, you'd be looking out the rear window.
State's Exhibit number 24. Similarly, looking through this windshield, what's that red item right here?
It's the car seat.
We're now looking at State's Exhibit number 25. What's that?
It's the bag, the plastic bag that was in the front passenger seat.
This is the car door that was open when you arrived on scene, when initial police officer arrived on scene?
That's correct.
What's that?
That's the Home Depot bag in the car seat.
What's that?
What number we on this?
State's 28.
It looked like a briefcase or a laptop bag.
From what vantage point are you standing when you took this photograph?
I'm standing just out the driver's side door, photographing inside from the outside. I'm not inside the car. I'm actually outside photographing inside.
Are you standing in the door frame?
Yes.
What's that?
That is the car seat.
What's that?
That is the Home Depot bag.
This is State's Exhibit 29 now. You see all three of those items that we've just talked about, the briefcase, Home Depot bag, and car seat, from your vantage point standing just outside the vehicle but in the door frame of it.
Yes, you can.
This is State's Exhibit 31. Looking out the passenger side, or looking into the passenger side window, what's this item right here?
It's the car seat.
Now, did you actually open the passenger side door at any point?
No, I did not.
This is State's Exhibit 32. Describe what 32 is and how you took this photograph.
I photographed this actually by placing the lens on my camera on the outside window to get this shot.
So while it might look like you're actually inside the vehicle, you just, to get rid of the glare, have put the camera directly up against it.
That's correct.
This is State's Exhibit 33. Looking at State's Exhibit 33, where are you standing? What vantage point when you took this photograph?
Just outside the door of the driver's side.
Still within the door frame?
So within the door frame has an open, in between the actual car and the actual door that's open.
So the door as you're facing will be on your left side?
That's behind me, correct.
What's that?
That would be the car seat.
What's that?
The Home Depot bag.
State's Exhibit 34. Similarly, what's that?
Home Depot bag, car seat.
This is State's Exhibit 35. Still within the door frame, is that correct?
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 37. Talk about this vantage point and what is depicted here.
I just zoomed in from the same position I was and zoomed in through the in between the seats to depict the car seat as it said.
Is the car seat close to the front driver's side and front passenger side of the seat?
It appeared to almost be touching the backs of both seats.
State's Exhibit 38. Zoomed in from that vantage point, is that correct?
That's correct.
You said it was almost touching. Looking at State's Exhibit 39, just a slight gap in between the passenger seat and that.
Objection to leading.
How much space would you estimate was between there?
Maybe an inch or two.
State's Exhibit 40, describe that, please.
Just a same vantage point, just a different zoom on the position of the car seat.
State's Exhibit 41, describe what 41 shows, please.
Once again, place the lens of the camera on the window to zoom in to see an overall of the car seat back there.
What's that? What seat?
It will be the driver's seat. The passenger seat would be right here.
Where would Cooper's head have been if you were placed in that car seat?
Objection, no foundation.
Well, if a child were in this seat, where would his head be? Down here? Up here?
The child was normally sitting in that seat. The bottom would be here. His legs would be here. His head would be here.
I want to back up to one photograph. Okay. This is State's Exhibit 29. Is this the dashboard area of that vehicle?
Yes.
And it's difficult to see here. But we have a zoomed-in photograph of this, correct?
Correct.
Is there a temperature reading on the dashboard for the exterior of the vehicle?
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin, that was State's 29.
Thank you.
All right. Now I'm going to talk about Cooper Harris. When investigator Jackson got to this location, did he lift that sheet allowing you to observe Cooper and take some pictures of him?
Yes, he did.
What's this area of the vehicle where Cooper's body was near?
The driver's side position of the vehicle.
This is State's Exhibit 47. After that sheet was removed, what does 47 depict?
47 is an overall viewing of the decedent Cooper Harris.
You had talked about his body being in a specific position. Looking at 47, can you describe for our record and for the jury what you saw?
To me, it appeared that he was lying on the ground, probably the same position he was in a car seat. His knees were slightly bent out to the side, his arms by his side.
This is State's Exhibit 48. You talked about some injuries that you observed to the head and face. Can you see those here? I know we have a better vantage point on them.
But just to his will be on his left cheek area. There'll be some on this side and some on the top of his right scalp.
This is a photograph, State's Exhibit number 50. We talked a little bit about a diaper. Can you actually see the top of that diaper line on the front of Cooper?
Yes, that's correct.
And then the marks or injuries that he observed to his face, can you see those here on the left cheek?
That's correct.
You talked a little bit about lividity, the discoloration. Do you see some of that lividity depicted here on his left arm?
That's correct.
And when we talk about rigor, we're really talking about, is it stiffness?
Right.
When you observed Investigator Jackson with Cooper Harris, did he exhibit that stiffness, that rigor that you talked about?
That's correct.
Looking at State's Exhibit 52 now on the right side of Cooper Harris, do you see that evidence of lividity, the pooling of the blood that you mentioned on the right arm?
That's correct.
Where?
Right by his elbow. Right elbow.
Looking at State's Exhibit 53, is that lividity on the left elbow?
This will be on the left elbow.
This is State's Exhibit 54. That darkest colored area?
Right, correct, on the left elbow.
We'll now talk a little bit about the right elbow. Looking at the right elbow, and to be clear, the blue gloved hands here, is that Investigator Jackson?
Yes.
As he's moving Cooper at the crime scene prior to removing him from the crime scene, is he allowing you to take photographs, and have you done this with him before?
Yes, I have.
looking at the right elbow, describe what's depicted here, please.
He's maneuvering the body to show a lividity or any signs of a injury.
State Exhibit 59, having lifted that arm somewhat, what's this discolored area here that you're taking a photograph of?
It's showing the lividity on the backside of his right arm.
You talked about rigor and being in a fixed position. Were his legs basically stiff like this?
You know, I didn't touch the decedent, but just, visualizing what he looked like, it would look like the rigger was sat in as he sat.
All right. I want to stop on State's Exhibit 66 for a moment here. Looking at State's Exhibit 66, after investigator Jackson turned Cooper over, you talked about a wet area, discoloration. Looking at State's Exhibit 66, can you describe what you saw?
Yeah. When Investigator Jackson rolled Cooper over, the back of his back was wet, and you can actually see the wetness in the top of his blue shorts.
Similarly, the back of his shirt, did you observe that area as well?
That's correct.
After Investigator Jackson pushed the shirt up, were you able to see lividity there as well?
That's correct.
And looking at State's Exhibit 71, the discoloration on the shorts you described, can you actually see that there as well? The wet area.
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 72, was this area also appeared to be wet? The backside of Cooper?
Yes, it was.
And State's Exhibit 73, did you zoom up on that wet area, both the top of the shorts and the back?
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 75, looking at the head of Cooper, specifically the rear of the head, did you see any lividity there as well as Investigator Jackson was manipulating Cooper's body?
Yes.
And then State's Exhibit 77, in terms of the lividity, looking at 77, after Cooper's pants were pulled down slightly, could you actually see some of the lividity on the backside, as well as the white area where there was obviously contact?
Right.
State's Exhibit 82, did you observe any abrasions in the neck area?
I believe there were some small abrasions where the skin was at, just behind the ear.
State's Exhibit 84, is this Investigator Jackson who's manipulating that area so you can photograph it?
Yes.
And then, obviously, Investigator Jackson, he's down on his knees, is that correct?
That's correct.
Was he closer to Cooper than you were?
Yeah, I was kind of hovering over him. He was kind of under me.
All right, sir. Maybe you can take a seat for a second. Yeah. Judge, at a point where I'm about to play the video, unless you want to take a break.
I think it's a good idea to take a break.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
long does the video last? I'm sorry.
It's not terribly long, maybe in total 10 minutes between the two of them, 10 to 15 minutes.
Let's take a break.
Yes, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen, those notepads, keep an open mind. Do not talk to each other. And put us when you're out, doing this stuff, do not talk to each other about the next. Y'all have a good break.
That's all right.
We'll break until 10:25.
Watch your stuff going down.